Hey everybody, Kenneth Russell here. Hope you're doing great. Today I am going to do a walkthrough of my new pedal board here, and I spent about 5 hours the other night putting it together. So just wanted to show you what my pedal board looks like because I think it's pretty cool. So here's the case. This is an SKB case, stage 5. I'm not sure the exact model, but it's stage 5 something. I think these are, I don't know, maybe 2009 is when they came out, something like that. I just got this used at Music Go Round here in Houston. Paid, I think, 69 bucks for it. Great deal. All right, so it's got these butterfly hinges that snap up, kind of cool, like that. And then it has these hinges on the back that allow it to swing, but then also come off. So when I take it, I can just do this, and then this comes off like that. And I can set it down on the ground, put it backstage, put it back there. We got a room back there. So this is the pedal board here. Normally I'd be standing with this, and this would face out back this way, but I'm going to turn it around here in a second so you can see the front of it. It's got its own built-in power supply, which I'll talk about in a second. But it's got this plug on the back, so I just plug this in, and then the pedal board itself now has power to it. Let me turn it a little bit this way. We have the Roland GR-55. Let me go through the pedals and I'll show how I got it hooked up. Roland GR-55 synthesizer, the Boss tuner, chorus, Boss chorus CH1, this is a Butler tube driver clone that I built, a Joyo Dyno compressor, and then the DD-20, Boss DD-20 digital delay, and the RV-5 digital reverb going into this AB switcher that I also built, and this is a tap tempo pedal for the Boss DD-20. So let me show you how I have all this powered up and routed, because it is kind of interesting how all this works. Okay, so up here on the pedal board itself, it has a few interesting things that some of it I'll never use. Over here, you can, if you want, put your guitar in here, and then your the output of this, you could start going to your pedals, that kind of thing. And they do this so you could have like a buffered input here if you wanted to, and you can actually adjust the gain on this. If you have a really hot guitar, you could put one in here, and you could have another guitar here, and basically you could match the level of your guitar 1 to your guitar 2, and then they would have the same output going into your pedal board. It's kind of cute, or kind of cute. What am I saying? It's kind of cool. I'm not using it that way. Let me show you how I have it set up. But basically, also it has a bunch of ways you can do, like this, I think here says effects output underneath this piece of Velcro. You can route it to, you're going to your effects, the send and return from your amplifier. You can have 2 different loops happening. There's a lot that can happen, but basically all of these connect this, except for this section, all of these connect this way. These are all connected to each other. So if you plug something in here, you can come out there. If you plug something in here, you can come out there. And that's how I have it run. So coming on over here in this section, the power section, it's got a bunch of different voltages and things you can use. So like over here in this part right here, this red, this says it's a 9 volt, 1.3 amp. It's got the ability to, some of the Boss pedals have, you got to have more than just the standard milliamp reading. We need more than 100 milliamps to run it. I think the DD-20 is one of those. So I actually have, this is the DD-20 plugged up here. These are just, it's like a jack like that. It plugs in, and then the other end of it, let me find one, is just your normal cable barrel there, barrel end. So this is 9 volt with a little bit more power. This section in this little square is a variable, so you can go all the way from 4 volts to 12 volts, and you just use like a screwdriver, and it twists it like that to determine it. Also, they have a switch here, polarity switch. So if you have one of those weird cables that it's a backwards polarity, you can switch that there. And I actually have kind of a combination thing happening. This Butler tube driver takes 16 volts, which is really weird, and a bunch of milliamps. I'm not sure what it does. The wall wart thing that plugs into the wall from the Butler tube driver was like, it's like huge. I mean, it's like a huge, it's the size of a pedal almost, about the half the size of a normal size pedal. And so I didn't want to put that on the board somewhere, and plus I'd have to power it. So what's cool is I was able to plug one of them into this 9 VAC and the other one into this variable, and then underneath this piece of tape is the thing that looks just like this, where I was able to fine-tune 7 volts, I guess, 9 plus 7 equaling 16, and I was able to actually power the Butler tube driver, which is, or not the Butler, but my clone, and it's pretty cool. So that was kind of a neat thing on this pedal board. And then this section here, this is just 9 volt. It has polarity, 18 volt, 24 volt. This you can choose 9 volt or 12 volt, whichever one you want. So that's the power section of it. And then I had to actually make a modification to this because the GR-55, it does not, it would not, none of these up here would power the GR-55. I think it just took too many milliamps or something. Not really sure, but it's powered here. I've got it right here plugged in, and then a wire run back underneath here. I don't know how well you can see that on the camera, if at all. I drilled a hole in there, took this thing apart, and basically just kind of hardwired it to the jack here, and kind of made like an outlet essentially for itself. So that's how I'm powering this. It's got the brick underneath here. Then this little section here is you can, I guess I've never used it, but I guess you can hook up your headphones and hear what's going on in your board, because it's already plugged in here. So interesting. I'm not sure how that works actually. Maybe you have to jumper it over to the input here. I'm not sure, but it has a headphone amp just so you can kind of, I guess the purpose of it is to make sure, without hooking it up to your amp, you can kind of make sure everything is working well on your whole board. You know, you get it all hooked up and you're like, okay, is this all working? You can test everything right here. And then it has a cable tester. So if you're wondering if your cable works, put one end in here, one end in here. Red light is not working, green light is working. So that's that. And then let me show you how I have everything run with these cables, because I actually have 3 different outputs for the whole pedal board for 3 different purposes. I use the GR-55 as a synth, as a kind of a background synthesizer. So most of my patches, there's really not any guitar sounds happening in this, but it's just sending out pads and synthesizer string sounds happening out. So I actually have an output here on the left out is my synth sound, and basically I'm able to send the synth sound out. I put this little blue piece of tape on here so I don't get any confusion. Then right here is that cord plugged into this. And so I'm just plugging it into here. And then, like I said before, this is connected to that. And so that's the output there. So I come over here, over there, that yellow box is my DI. And then I just take one of the synth part of the DI and I plug it up in here. And that's that. So I'm able to just kind of come in here and easily just go, all right, how do I hook up? Boom. That's already hooked up, ready to go. Pretty neat. And then same thing here for my guitar signal is ultimately coming through here. And then I did something kind of interesting. I'll show you how I have that all routed here in a second, the guitar signal. But what's interesting about this coming out here is I have a third out that is my electric guitar out, and I'll explain how I have that wired up. And the way that we have this here, I have this hard-lined 2 XLR cables. This is a Pile Pro DI, just a cheap little DI, but it is pretty good actually. And these run underneath the stage, and everything in that room, that black wall there, on the other side of that black wall is our amp room, and everything is run back into there to the stage box, and then it runs all the way to the front of house back there where the sound guy's at. And so these are hardwired there. So if I want to have an electric sound and plug up into the amplifier that's back in that room, in the past I've had to run another wire around the drums and give me a thing here. And I try to have as little wires on stage as possible. I just got done with rehearsal. That's why these are all not looking good, but I try to keep them as organized as possible. Like, so the stage just looks nice. Anyway, needless to say, in order for me not to run a wire from here into another DI and then back there somehow, what I've done is I've got these X5, just a wireless guitar, and I actually can plug that in there, and then the other end of it goes into the amplifier. And so I just kind of have keeping these like this. This is the power charging cable for it in case the batteries die. I've got it ready to go. So basically I don't use these very much. Once every now and then I'll have to play electric, and when I do, it'll make it where I don't have to run another wire. So it's just kind of cool. I just happen to have these. I was sent those to do a review of, and I liked them. I kept them, so I'm going to use them. But I mean, that's just not even necessarily a recommendation. It just was easier for me to use that, even though I do like those X5 transmitter and receivers. So that's kind of cool. So I actually have 3 different outputs happening here. So why would I need that, and how would I arrange that? My guitar here, the Godin XTSA, has a piezo. Those are both the same guitars pretty much. They have a piezo pickup in the bridge, and basically that gives an acoustic sound to it. And it's got on the top there, it's got a little EQ I can have on the top of the guitar, and so I can fine tune the acoustic sound. And then I also have the electric sounds there at the bottom, and I use that for the acoustic sounds primarily, and so that comes into the GR-55. The GR-55 has this kind of interesting input jack. It's a 13-pin deal, and basically you have to have this on your guitar in order to use the GR-55. So each of these guitars have like a 13-pin output jack. Anyway, some people call this a MIDI cable, even though it's not actually MIDI that it's transmitting, but basically gives the ability to have synthesizer sounds. This goes in here into the back, and I'm hooked up there. Then what's able to happen is on the output here, I have the synth going here, and then I have this right here. It says guitar output. That's my dry signal coming out. So even though the GR-55 has an extensive guitar effects inside, I don't use any of them. I like to have pedal effects for the most part. Every now and then I'll use one, but I mean, it's like 98% of the time I don't. So I have the guitar output. This would be the same as using the regular output jack on the guitar. It's coming out here, guitar out to my tuner. By the way, I just want to give a shout out to Hosa for giving me all the cables for this build. They are awesome. I'm going to do a full review of their cable line, but I mean, they're awesome. This right here is their one of their top of the line. It's called the Edge cables, and they're just incredible. They're a little bit more pricey than most cables, but man, the quality is awesome. And even their Pro line like this is really great. So these are actually all of the cables in here are from Hosa. With the exception of this one red cable here, which is a decent cable in itself, but I had one run that I needed to come across here that I didn't have a Hosa cable, so I will be replacing this at some point with a Hosa cable. But it's kind of cool because Hosa makes great stuff, and I'm not worried about the pedal board going bad or having an issue. One of the things about having a pedal board like this, that the reason why I did it was so I could just kind of come in, set up, and not, worry about the pedal board. I'm able to, I know that these cables aren't going to go bad, basically. If you get a bunch of cheap cables, they may work, but you're going to have, like, why isn't this working? And you got to go troubleshoot every single one. So this took me forever to build. Took me about 5 hours, to be honest with you, because this GR-55 is way too big for what it is. It should be about half the size, in my opinion. And if they had just a rack mount version, or just like a small box that did all of the sounds, I would be happier with that. This thing is just too big. Anyway, I had to kind of arrange this. It took me forever to figure out the arrangement, and then just wiring everything. I wanted it to look really nice and neat, not have any cables on top and that kind of thing. So I was pretty happy with that. I'm gonna unplug this really quick. So anyway, these are all hose of cables in here. So it's coming guitar out through this cable. It's wrapping down underneath here into the tuner. From the tuner, it's going up to the chorus. From the chorus, I'm going to the tube driver to the compressor to the DD-20 delay to the reverb. Now, this is how most of the time, like I said, I play acoustic sounds through this, and the tube driver and the compressor I don't use at all. So basically my acoustic setup is essentially chorus, delay, and reverb, and then my synth sounds here I play. And so what I did was I had one of the outputs like that going here so I'm coming out of here, out of the reverb pedal, into this AB switcher that I built, and basically I can switch to two different signals. So the signal A, out A, which is going up here, this is my acoustic sound out. So this way I can be hardwired into this going to my DI, and then this is hardwired going into the DI from the GR-55. But then if I want to do electric, so say I come up 1 week and I'm playing electric, rather than having to have another board where I have like basically the same things, I use a little bit of chorus sometimes on electric, I use delay, and I use reverb. So sometimes the chorus I don't really care about, but I'll always use delay and I'll always use reverb on just about anything I'm playing. And so rather than having an electric board and an acoustic board with the same pedals, I basically made one, even though acoustic ways I'm not going to use this. But because in this setup I have a hard wire here, I wanted to be able to not have to run another cable coming back there, and so I used these X5 things going in here. So basically, if I'm going to do the electric sound, I'll be able to switch here and have a separate output to an actual amp with the electric sound. And so I just kick on these two and switch. And the way that I'm doing it, I'm not going to be usually playing like, okay, acoustic, and then all of a sudden I need to go to the electric sound. If I do need to do that, I can just hit this and it's going to send it to the amp, and then I guess I could hit these two on at the same time. But essentially for me, it's not really an on-the-fly switching thing, even though I probably could do it that way. It's more of just a convenience of having this pre-wired. If I want to do acoustic, I just keep these three pedals on. If I want to do electric, turn this off, turn this on, and I would use the compressor probably only as a boost for like a solo. And I may switch these. Sometimes I like the compressor in front of the overdrive. Sometimes I like it after. And it's actually been a while since I've played around with these two pedals, and so I'm not exactly sure which way I'm going to like it. But I may switch this and move this one over. And it might be a little bit easier too with this to get access to that. Also, the DD-20 has tap tempo functionality. And so I built this tap tempo pedal, and I'm able to put this on a 3-foot cord plugged into the control. I'm trying to do this one-handed here. So basically I can take this and set it to the side if I wanted to, or usually what I do is I have this sitting kind of where it's at but turned around, and you know, if I'm standing right here, I may want to have the tap tempo a little bit in front of the board, just where it's right next to my foot. I can put my foot like right here and then just reach over and with my foot and change the tempo on there. So it's pretty neat though. You know, you can see that it's changing live the tempo. You get really fast or you do a slow, and it just changes it with it. So this actually, even though I have a little spot for this here, for the most of the time, I'm probably going to take this off the board and play. And what's cool about where I'm playing here is it has this carpet, and I just stick it down with the Velcro, and it's going to stay in its spot until I remove it. So pretty neat the way this whole thing worked out. I'm loving it. The next thing I'm going to do to it is on the underside of this, I'm probably just going to drill a couple holes underneath here so that my cables I can actually strap to the underside of this, where I don't just have to throw them in here, because if you throw them in here, it's going to be like loose in this whole cavity when it's in transport. And so if I had to have like a cable tie here and a cable tie here, just basically take one of those Velcro straps and put one here and one here, I could take the circle of the cable when it's wrapped up and tie them down and just have all my cables in here. Well, I hope you enjoyed my new pedal board layout that I have here. I'm absolutely loving it, and you know, it's been great. Anyway, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. What kind of pedal board do you have? What are you working with? I'd love to know about it. Also, if you like this video, hit the thumbs up, subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm Kenneth Russell. I make videos that help make musicians better musicians, and hopefully this video did that for you. And I will see you in another video.